Welcome to episode 3 of BStoltman Speaks. I got actually a very good question from an individual who by his username is known as Thokling. And I thought his question and statements were actually quite valid and very important to address here. Um, he was kind of curious. Well, I guess I'll just read part of his post that he did. Uh, I'm not entirely certain what the point of this particular video is, and he's referencing episode 1 that I did and 2 probably as well. But anyway, I'm not entirely certain what the point of these particular videos are, except to espouse information without backing it with supportive references. Who is BStoltman, and why should I consider his opinion important? Let's get some background on you, you young whippersnapper, which I love that, by the way. Education and employment history is applicable to my previous question. This is actually a good thing to be brought up, just so that people do know why I'm doing this and what it is my goal is with this. My first name is Blake, just so that you know. So there you go. But although I prefer to be known as BStoltman on here, since that's what my YouTube username is and whatnot. What my point of these videos are is to basically give people my view on things. My goal is not to sit there and give you all my references or point you at, give you a huge history lesson on every little thing. Most of these things, there are plenty of documentaries out there that people have done, like someone might ask me about the Federal Reserve, and I'll tell you what I know about the Federal Reserve or have found to be true. I'm not going to sit there and give you a long history of it, because there are people who have done that. There are plenty of documentaries on YouTube and other places for that. Maybe eventually I would consider doing some of those and give the long spiel and give all the reference and everything. What I'm trying to do is kind of point people at certain things. It's more meant for the people who don't have a clue about what's going on. And most of those people are not willing to sit there and watch an hour-long episode or documentary or something going through the whole history. They find it boring. I've tried to, open up people that way and show them, the really cool videos that really show what's going on. But they don't want to watch them, or they get so closed-minded after a simple statement that, the rest of it's pointless at that point. I found that it's much better to do like little snippets, to just kind of open the door on something, to make them ponder it, and then they might come back to me later after a little bit and might want me to elaborate on some of it or give some more of the details in another short burst. Or maybe they'll actually look into it eventually themselves. And if you have a question about, where you could find more information on this, I'm more than willing to help you out with that. If you do want to know more about something, ask me a question. We can stay on one topic for a while. My last one was Comet Ison. I already said I don't know a whole lot on that. That wasn't something that I was that interested in. It's something I've watched. I've watched a few documentaries on it and stuff, and different people's opinions and whatnot, but I don't know a ton. I'm not an expert, and I said that in my first video. I'm not an expert on anything. None of this information is my own, for the most part. It's just what I've heard from watching documentaries and other people's opinions and learning. And it's my take on it that I've gotten thus far, and it'll change, as time goes on. But if you've got a question, go ahead. The last one I mentioned Project Paperclip. If you have something that you want to know about that or something, you can ask me to elaborate on a particular question. But I'm going to focus it that way and have individual videos regarding individual questions instead of one long spiel about it. So hopefully this opens the door for people to maybe look things up themselves, because I think people are really lazy. They don't want to look it up, and I'm not here to do all the work for you. You know, either you're interested or you're not. Either you want to know, and I'm focusing on the people who don't know for the most part, or maybe just want an alternative view, because I look for those a lot too myself. I mean, I like hearing the other side. I like hearing other people's views because I might not agree with their entire philosophy. I might know something that they don't know, but they might have something that I didn't have that can be incorporated into my idea that I have for myself. And so it's kind of that ground as well. And there's a lot of people who do have a lot of questions and they feel like they're dumb questions. And I don't believe that they're necessarily dumb questions. You know, I want people to feel comfortable asking whatever. I mean, if you want to know, everyone hears rumors of things. You know, I have friends who heard rumors about the Federal Reserve. I like to talk about that one, the Federal Reserve, and how, you know, they're not part of the U.S. government or something. And they'll bring it up eventually to me, say, "Have you heard that?" And then I can elaborate and show them why. And if they want more information, I'll point them at documentaries or whatever. But I'll give them a general blurb on it, so of what I know. So that's my main point of what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to open the door, maybe give out a few ideas, giving my own, and keeping it from there. But please don't use me as like the end-all answer or anything. I don't have that. If there's anything I've learned in the 10, 12 years that I've been studying, nothing is static. I mean, it does not, my view has not remained at all. There are certain things that have stuck, but I could see them overturning too. So, who is BStoltman and why should I consider his opinion important? I kind of covered that. Why you shouldn't necessarily. I mean, it's just another view. Who am I? I started studying, as I said, about 10, 12 years ago. Probably even longer than that, because I don't know exactly when you would say that the study began. But as growing up, I always felt like something was wrong. You know, the history that people were telling me just didn't seem right in school completely. I always felt like it was one-sided, and I was always intrigued by the other side. You know, oh, well, we're the good guys in this war, in the United States or something. And I always thought, well, I wonder what they say in their history. I mean, what were their beliefs? And the most we'd get in that history would be like some short blurb, but then 50 pages about how wonderful we are and why they were wrong. And I'm like, all right, give me the 50 pages on their view, because obviously they have something. And sometimes they really didn't, you know. Sometimes it was kind of, ooh. But that was something that struck me. I'm not a religious person. I'll tell you that about me. I don't hold to any one religious faith of any form. I do consider myself spiritual. I do believe in consciousness and the existence of potentially life after this matter manifestation. But, you know, I don't know exactly what those are per se. I mean, I've heard so many different things and studied. Nothing's really locked down. But I do believe that there's something. When I would consider my studies began, I started studying probably about when I was near the end of high school. At that time, I still didn't really believe in God. I never really gave it a thought, really. I mean, I went to some church and stuff, but I didn't really pay attention to it that much. I mean, it just seemed like something you do. But eventually I did actually come upon a show, which I'm sure I'll get flack for, but I used to watch I was introduced to the Shepherd's Chapel, which is a Bible TV show or whatever. And it was a pastor who all he would do was sit and he would read the Bible and he would give his interpretation of the lines. And that's all he did for the most part. And then he'd do like a little question and answer type thing. And I found that far more interesting than what I did when I went to church, you know, where they just read one line that was out of context and then try and relate it to his life with his children or something. and that never did anything for me. But I did that, and it began to make me actually think that maybe there was a God or something. And then after that, then I started going into psychology, studying that on the side for fun. I picked up every book I could come across, young, self-improvement stuff, Tony Robbins, um, Israel Regardie kind of got brought in some of that. There's tons of it. David Hawkins, which actually is something I've always really enjoyed, and that actually helped change me because I was a very quiet person. I stayed away from people for the most part. When I went to school, I didn't want to, really be noticed for the most part. I just wanted to, get through my day, get through my classes, go home, so that I could go read or play a video game or something, and that's what I wanted to do, and so every once in a while I'd have friends over, we'd play some games, and then I would study, I would read. That's what I'd do all night long. And I'd be up till 3, 4 in the morning doing that. I did that, and then after high school, I started questioning things a lot more. I mean, I really hadn't gotten into the conspiracy stuff yet, but I actually began to wonder, is God real? Am I just... I've read now, studied the Bible through this Bible, Shepherd's Chapel or whatever, and done reading on my own, and I began to wonder, is it real? Can you prove it? And that kind of stuff. And so I started studying that, and naively I thought, well, I could prove it. I'll prove whether God exists or not. And so I started studying all religions then. And I went through and read the Bhagavad Gita and the Zohar and all the other texts that I could get my hands on. And as I did that, I began to see that they were all very, very similar, and questions started to arise, the biblical view. They'd say that, well, only those that are, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, you're not going to make it into heaven, as some people's views. I mean, obviously there are scholars who say alternative views on the thing, but that kind of thing. But then I'd say, well, what about the people who were born in Asia and are Hindu or something, or Taoism, or whatever they're into? And what about those people? So they're going to hell then, according to the view? And some people say, well, no, they're not going to. They'll go to purgatory when they die, and they'll be given their option up there or something. It just didn't seem fair, and so I couldn't buy into that story anymore. And same with what is it, like the people who were Christians, Here where I was, most people are Christian, and they didn't become Christian because they studied the religions and said, oh yeah, that resonates with me. They were just born into it. Their parents told them that was it. They made them go to church and stuff, and that was the thing that stuck. And so they weren't even given the option of the other ones. So I mean, is their opinion as valid then? Was it a